All right, so we're going to do a walkthrough of just the interface of Cinema 4D, just to give you an idea of where things are located to help this transition into the 3D world. If you've never been there. So the main area that we're looking at here, this is our main working area that we will typically be screwing around with. Our model will be in there, our animations, everything will be viewed here, and this is what we're going to be, our canvas basically, you can look at it as that. Um, as we create things, they're going to be inside this world, and we can zoom out to really really far away, or zoom in very very close to things. Okay, so that's basically our canvas of where we work. On the left side here, this is our different menus of what we're selecting. So we're selecting the model, we're selecting the texture, we're selecting the work plane, the points, the edges, the polygons, the axis, how we're viewing some of the stuff. So this is a solo. So if I had a couple items here, remember my hotkeys, there we go. If I wanted to just see one of these, I could solo just that one item. Okay, really helpful for when you need that kind of thing to happen. If I'm editing just the faces, you can see I can grab just the face and move just that face of it. Okay, snapping, work plane stuff are right here. So you'll see basically these are options for what we're able to see and select inside this area. Up at the top here, these are different ways we're able to select things. So let me delete these items. And I'm just going to make a sphere. And right now this is on live selection, so I just clicked and held, which means I can click and drag and kind of paint what I'm selecting, which is definitely helpful. The other ways to do it are rectangular selection, lasso, and polygon. So you can kind of think of like Photoshop with the selection tools that it has, kind of similar to that. Okay, so usually I'll leave it on this, or I'll just go into, let's say, the move tool, click off, and then I can just click and shift click the faces that I want. Okay, which obviously that's the move tool. There's also scale, there's also rotate, and then this is the last tools that we were in. Okay, so it's kind of like frequently used or recently used tools. This is the direction we're able to move it in. So if I clicked on one of these, you'll see that, my fingers are slippery. I can move this basically in any direction. Okay, just like that. If I turn some of these off though, I'll only be able to move it in the one direction. See, it's only moving in that one direction. There we go. Okay, so that's what those two options are there for. This controls how it's moving. So right now it's moving kind of along this face. If I switch this, it's going to move towards the world. Okay, so just something to kind of pay attention to. Just options. You need to know exactly what they're going to do right now. These are different ways to be able to render this stuff, whether it's popping up a different viewer, render settings. Anytime you see these little clappers, typically that means rendering, and that's true for other softwares as well. These are different items. So these things up here at the top, you'll see create object, and there's a bunch of objects listed. If I click and hold here, a lot of those options, the main ones, are going to be listed inside this area. So it's just a quick way, instead of having to go up here and grab stuff, that we can just do it right there. And the same thing for this. These are all different paths. If I go to create spline, those are there here. Okay. These are different subdivision surface things. So if I went to one of these areas up here, it would be up there. I just go down here. Okay. Same thing here. So these are just quick things, popular things that typically you're going to use. Same thing there. Same thing here. And camera stuff and light stuff. The nice thing about 3D is that a lot of the icons are very representative of what they are. So it's easy to see exactly what's in there. Also, they're kind of color coded. So these are green. So these actually are different kinds of things than these ones that are blue and these ones that are purple. Okay. So very helpful things to have there. Way at the top is your regular menus. But like I said, a lot of the stuff you'll see is in these main things that we can get to. We will have to jump up here for some things, but most of the stuff we'll be doing we can grab just from these menus here and some of the other menus that are hidden in other spots. On the far right, this is our object list. So let me jump back to object mode. As we have new objects in our scene, you'll see sphere 1, sphere regular. Duplicate this again, there's sphere 2. Different ways that we can layer things, select things, highlight things. There's more things that we can grab from this area as well. We can bookmark things. We can do some other tools and settings there too. There's also some tabs on the right. We're not going to use these much at all, but I want you to know that they're there. You may accidentally click it and then you can't see your objects, and then, oh, there they are. You can change your layout too. So even though I'm going through it like this, if you came in and it was on something else, obviously this whole interface would look completely different. You may accidentally get rid of one of these things and you need to get it back, right? So you can just go back to standard, and now everything's back. There's also a find. In this class, we're not really going to have a use for that because most of our items are going to be kind of small, so we're not going to have like these list of hundreds of items. Everything will be pretty much right there. Down here we have attributes. So because we just started Cinema, project settings, info, dynamics, and reference are all right here. This is the main thing that shows up. If I click off of this and click on an item, you'll see that that goes away. Okay. If I come over here and hit D, if I hit the right button, go back to this. Control D, there we go. Then we can see the settings again. These are things typically we don't need to screw around with too much unless we're doing something a bit fancy. Something to note though is that we are dealing with centimeters. So if we're building something in real scale, we'd want to make sure that we're measuring it in centimeters. Okay. If we do have an item selected, these are the attributes for that item. So this sphere, here's specific item information. Visible in editor is off. Ooh, it's invisible. No, it's on, right? We can also do visible in render off. And if we hit that render button, you'll see that it's not visible in the render, but it is visible in my viewport. Okay, so you can change how things are displayed throughout. Here's the coordinates. We can change these things manually. There's also arrows on the side. If I click and drag on the arrows, I can move it directly with that. So I'm just clicking and dragging my mouse to update those values. Same thing with scale, that's what the S stands for. And the same thing with rotation, which is what these are. And then you can change how this thing is rotating. It's HPB is the default. I typically like it XYZ. That makes more sense to me, but that's me. Other options are here, more options are there. As you have different items, different attributes will appear down here. So if I were to go into MoGraph and add this to a cloner, you'll see that I get basic still, coordinate still, but then I have object, transform, and effectors, which are different ones than we had a second ago. Okay. And you'll also notice that because of how I click that, the sphere is actually locked into this cloner here. Drag it out, delete the cloner. Here's layers. So layers in 3D don't work the same as layers in 2D. If an item is on a layer, so I'm just going to drag this layer onto sphere 1. I'll make another new layer. I'll drag this layer onto sphere 2, and I'll turn their visibility off. Okay. If I switch their layer position, it doesn't do anything to control what they are doing as far as what they see. These are just for organizational purposes and to control items on a larger scale. Just like I was able to turn the one layer's visibility off, I could do that on a layer basis. So if I had 50 items on this layer, I can click this one button to hide those items. Okay, same thing with locking them and so on. So that's what that area is. Down here at the bottom, this is your materials. So if we're going to give something a material, we can just double click this, and then drag this onto that item, and now we have a different color. Okay. Different options here for creating new materials, editing materials, functions, textures, and so on. Some more options here for moving things. Our timeline, so when we do animate stuff. And then there's also some hidden ones. Oops, let's go here. Let's go to there. Not that hidden is just you can't typically need them until you start screwing around with other stuff. Come on. There it goes. Wasn't letting me set keyframes. And there. Okay. So I set some keyframes on here. So you'll see we got a little bit different thing going on. We have some keyframes down there. Oops. With these things are in red. If I right click on this now, I can go to showing F curves. So here's another menu that I can pop up and look at the curves for how this is animating. I can also go to show track, and there's another option. I can add this to my HUD, so I always have it if I wanted to. I've never needed to do that. There's other stuff too that we'll get into. Okay, just so you're aware, there's different menus hidden inside here for what we're going to be doing. Right. We also have inside of this viewport, we have different ways we can see and manipulate what we're seeing here. So if I go to lines, you'll see I'm able to see the wireframes of these things. If I change this back to quick shading or constant shading with lines, you can see it's again just changing how it's being displayed. Same thing here under options. I can control or view things like shadows and transparency and all that. I can add filters in here to remove items. So if I don't want to see any polygons, it'll hide all the polygons, where if I do want to see them, I can leave that on. Different viewport arrangements. So if I were to, let's say, middle click, here's my perspective, here is my top, front, and right. You can see the names right there. And I can just middle click into any one of these to see what that looks like. In this area, you can control where those are at. So you want to see all views, you want to go to the right, bottom right one. Easy way to get to it. And then Pro Render, which we're not going to use right now anyway. All my controls I'm doing too to kind of navigate are also here. So as I pan around the scene, zoom in and out, or rotate, I can also grab those icons from that area. Okay. So a lot of different things you can do inside the software. It's incredibly powerful. The more you use it, the more comfortable you're going to get with that interface anyway. But I just wanted to give you just a quick, brief overview of what we're looking at inside here.